Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Foxy and this is Foxy Books and Planning. Welcome to another monthly reading wrap-up. This is the wrap-up for October 2020. A few notes before we get started. One of my friends who watches my channel, hi Jessie, pointed out that I made a mistake in the previous video in the title screen. My apologies for that. That's what happens when you're rushing your editing process. Also, apologies for the state of my nails today. I am in the middle of baking a sourdough loaf, and I have not had a chance, or I haven't cleaned my nails yet because I still have to shape and put the loaves in the oven. So with that, let's just get into it. Overall, for the month of October, not as big of a reading month in terms of books completed or accomplishments that I'm happy to have done. It was an okay month in terms of things completed. I didn't do as much reading because work was just nuts. And instead of doing audiobooks or something similar while I was working, I was listening to a lot of the YouTube kind of ambiance videos where it's kind of a background and it's like 8 hours of jazz music in a coffee shop and coffee shop noises, that kind of thing, which really helps me focus on work. But it does not help me make progress. So a lot of progress in terms of actual books, not a lot of progress in terms of audiobooks, except for the one book that I've been pretty much dedicating all of my audiobook time to. And with that, the first completed book for the month is The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton. I had this as an e-arc from NetGalley, and I gave it 5 stars. This book did come out at the beginning of October, so it is available for y'all to purchase now. I would highly recommend you all try this one out, especially if you liked The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. It is a very different mystery from the first one. And in the author's notes, Mr. Turton is very clear about he had finished Evelyn Hardcastle and he wanted to do something completely, still a mystery, but completely different in terms of setting and style, or style of mystery from Evelyn Hardcastle. So with The Devil in the Dark Water, we are following a group of Danish citizens as they are returning to the Netherlands from one of their far eastern, or the East Indian colonies. And our main characters that we're following are Arndt, Hayes, and Sarah, whose last name escapes me. I will throw myself a note. Arndt is Watson to a man named Samuel Pepys, who has been arrested by the governor of the colony for treason against the East India Company, and the governor is taking Pepys back to the Netherlands to stand trial before the East India Company's board of 17 governors. The mystery starts out right away as the groups are, or as people are boarding the boats. A tongueless leper kind of jumps up and basically says the voyage is doomed, you'll never make it home. Everyone leave now, abandon all hope, that kind of stuff, and is immolated in the process. And so Arndt is attempting to discover who is threatening the ship and why. And he's given the task by the governor, who is also his uncle. But Arndt tries not to associate with that level because he is of the gentry, but Arndt has lived a very different life than the life that was anticipated of him. We also have Governor's wife, Sarah, who is trying to figure out, she's working with Arndt and with her lady in waiting, whose name I cannot pronounce, so I will just put it up here for y'all. Who is the governor's mistress, and Sarah is hoping to arrange a marriage between her lady in waiting and a French nobleman in order to protect herself and her daughter from her husband. So there's a lot of stuff going on. As the voyage unfolds, more and more supernatural type occurrences start to threaten the ship. The leper makes an appearance. All of the livestock mysteriously die. There's a mysterious boat light in the distance that everybody thinks is a ghost ship. And we're told about the devil old Tom, who is hunting down people who made deals with him but have breached those deals in some way. And Arndt is especially worried about this because he believes that he brought old Tom into this world when he was a child, and that old Tom has just kind of haunted him all of these years. In terms of the plot and the mystery, I really enjoyed it. It was well paced. I did not see the twist that shows up at the end, which I greatly appreciated. It also makes me want to go back and reread it. Sorry. It makes me want to go back and reread it so I can see the little clues that Turton leaves throughout the book to get you to that answer, especially when you understand, when you know the outcome. I did enjoy the main characters. I did find that, good grief, the female characters were interesting in that they were educated as they were ladies of the upper classes. And they were using their intelligence, using the knowledge that they had gained through their educations to try and solve the mystery, and also to free themselves from what they see as the oppressive nature of the society. However, there were times that some of the female characters felt very one-dimensional. Sarah's daughter in particular is very, very one-dimensional. She's very much a kind of side character who pops up when we need her. But other than that, just kind of stays in her cabin and nobody talks to her. And some of the other female characters I wish had been fleshed out more. I wish we had learned a little bit more about Sarah's relationship with her husband and maybe the additional reasons why she was running away. We do get a little bit of explanation towards the end of the book, but I wanted more from that line of questioning. And I wanted Pipps involved in the story more. That was my other... I really enjoyed the character of Samuel Pipps and his kind of quirks and things, and I wish he could have been involved in the story more. Overall, highly, highly, highly recommend this book. It is historical fiction. It is a mystery. I really, really recommend this. It's probably going to be one of my top 5 books of the year when we get to the end of the year. And I'm really looking forward to whatever Stuart Turton comes out with next. Next book I finished this month was Orconomics, which is the Dark Prophet Saga Book 1 by J. Zachary Pike. This is a personal audiobook, and I did give it 5 stars. So the Dark Prophet Saga is a satire. It combines the sword and sorcery of Dungeons and Dragons with a lot of elements from real life, but he takes the real life elements and spins them just enough to make them, 1, notice or identifiable, and 2, hilarious within the story. With Orconomics, which is book 1, we're following a group of heroes who have been banded together by Niln, who is the high prophet of one of the gods in the world, who believes they are going to fulfill this prophecy to stop the Dark Prince, who has been dead for hundreds of years at this point. And they are given a fetch quest by the King of Andoran to retrieve the Elven marbles. Very similar to the Elgin marbles, if you are familiar with those. Stones that were looted from orcs and are seen as important elements of Elvish culture. And they have gone missing. So the team goes out. We have Gorm Ingerson, who is a dwarf berserker. There's Kieran. I'll put names up as I remember them. Who is known as the Jade Wind. She is an elven ranger who's fallen on some hard times. There's Jin, the Noctomancer. So in this particular world, the magic is split into 2 sects. there's light magic and dark magic, or solomancers and noctomancers, and wizards and mages who can use both are considered omnimancers and ostracized by everybody. You kind of pick a side and stick with it. So Jin, the High Counselor of Noctomancy, Laruna, who's a solomancy apprentice, Haraldin Strummins, who is a bard, and Geist, who is, how do I put that? They call him Weapons Master. He's basically a fighter, but he is the epitome of the strong, dark, silent type. And so the first book follows them as they go out on this quest. There's also scenes that cut back and forth to the Bank of Goldston and Banks, where we see Mr. Poldo, who is a gnome. I think he's a gnome. Who's trying to show Goldston and Baggs how adventuring is not as profitable as it used to be, and how they need to diversify their portfolio and maybe move into things other than adventuring. And we keep hearing all of these things where the kings are going to put extra taxes on adventuring, how adventuring loot is not as plentiful as it once was, and how the majority of the world's GDP is primarily made up of adventuring. So the whole point of those asides becomes clear towards the end of the book. And I was really excited. It does end on a cliffhanger, and I am working on book 2, which you'll hear about a little bit later. But I highly recommend it for anybody who is a fan of fantasy, who is a fan of Dungeons and Dragons, and who is looking for a different take on the Dungeons and Dragons kind of questing books. All right, next, now we get into some not so great books this month. The Haunting of Beatrix Green by Rachel Hawkins, Ash Parsons, and Vicky Schechter. I had this as an e-arc from NetGalley. I ended up giving it 3 stars. This is, I believe, being published by Serial Box, and it's definitely set up in an episodic manner where you're kind of meant to read one episode at a time. And so the story itself follows Beatrix Green, who is a spirit medium in Victorian England, who is recruited by a Dr. James Walker to investigate the suspected haunting of Ashbury Manor. He believes that she is the genuine article, and it's shown in the first episode that she is not a real spirit medium, that she uses tricks and whatnot to get, or to provide whatever the person who's paying her to contact their family member needs. And it proceeds very much in a similar vein to The Haunting of Hill House and other haunted housey ghost stories. The main reasons why I gave this 3 stars was I understand it's a serial. It's not terribly long. It's more of a novella, maybe even a short story than a full novel. It needed to be longer. In my personal opinion, I wanted it to be longer. I wanted more of an exploration of the haunting and the causes of the haunting, and maybe have more than one element, because it's very much here's our characters, let's get to the manor, let's start the ghost hunting, essentially. And then all of a sudden it's like, and bam, we've got a haunting, and bam, we've got a resolution, and bam, we're done. And I'm like, I wanted the haunting and resolution parts to be stretched out so we could explore James and Beatrix more as characters, and some of the other characters that come along for the journey, explore the house a little bit more, explore the haunting a little bit more, explore the nature of the haunting, maybe have that, what does Foundflix call it? The obligatory scene that you see in most horror movies where the main character is looking on the internet to find more information about whatever's haunting them. That scene. I wanted that scene in this book. And I wanted the haunting, because it's built up to be a very, very scary haunting, and it would probably work really great as like a Netflix special. Who knows? Maybe this will be the haunting of season 3. But I wanted it to be longer and more detailed and more fleshed out. I also really didn't care for the character of Beatrix so much, especially because she does a lot of character flip-flops throughout the story, and maybe that's just because we had multiple authors where the authors had different ideas of where Beatrix was going. So when it was their turn to write something, it would change. And there is a bit of romance between Beatrix and James, and I just didn't really believe it. And I really do believe that lengthening out the story would have given the authors more time to set up that romance and let it breathe and grow instead of just kind of coming out of thin air and then being gone when it's gone. It's very, very strange. Anywho, if you are looking for a quick, easy Halloween read, I believe this one is out this week. If you would like to purchase it or read it or whatever you should choose to do with it. The last book I finished this month was The Long Dark Road by P.R. Black. I did have this as an e-arc from NetGalley, and I did give it 2 stars. This book is out November 5th if the plot and everything sounds interesting to you and you do want to pick it up. The Long Dark Road tells the story of Georgia Healy as she returns to the town that her daughter disappeared from 2 years ago in an attempt to locate her daughter's remains and have closure. Kind of the whole call to action for this story is that the police, the case has gone cold, the police have run out of leads, and so they have released Stephanie, who is Georgia's daughter's diary, to her mother, and Georgia has been reading it and reading all of these things and has basically decided that now that I have this new information, I'm going to do my own investigation because no one else will. And the town itself, it's a college town. Stephanie was a college student, so her mother shows up and is interviewing her old friends, her old teachers, all of these people she mentions in her diary, and trying to be like, well, in the diary she says this, well, what does that mean? And a lot of the characters are like, well, we knew what that meant. And I think the thing that bugged me about this, there were a couple of things that bugged me about this story. First of which was this whole idea of the mom being like, well, now I have this diary, I have all of this new information, I'm going to solve this investigation when the police haven't done it in 2 years. Because multiple times throughout the book, she has a conversation with someone, she discovers a tidbit of information, and the police show up because she's trespassing, she's harassing somebody she's been told not to harass, whatever the case may be. And she divulges this information she's learned to the police, and the police were like, yes, we already knew that. We already looked into this, and it didn't go anywhere. And it happens multiple times throughout the book, and the more I sit and think about it, I'm just like, why would you think that you would be able to glean something from this diary that the police have had for 2 years that they haven't already investigated? Arguments can be made that, well, she's the mother, she probably knows her daughter better than the police do, but the diary is written in code, and a lot of the classmates and things knew what the code was, so they were able to translate things for the police as the police asked questions. The other thing that I had major problems with was the big plot revelation at the end of the book, which I'm going to do my best to try not to spoil any aspect of. But to me, the twist ending came out of nowhere. And it's another one of those things that I will have to go back and read again. And I don't want to read this book again. To see if the author left any clues to get to the ending. And I know I said I liked this kind of thing with The Devil in the Dark Water, where I didn't see the twist coming, but I wanted to go back and read through the clues again to see if I could get where the kind of hints were dropped. However, that is because you could kind of see in that book where, as the mystery unravels, you start to put pieces together and you start to begin to see the answer. And with Long Dark Road, you don't really see the answer. It's just kind of like there are all of these threads. They don't lead anywhere. And then all of a sudden at the end, Georgia puts it all together and is like, I know who the killer, I know who the dude is. I know where I'm going to find my daughter. Everything's going to be fine now. I just have to lay the groundwork to be like, oh, I know where I'm going. And it didn't work for me. And I don't really like the way that this went, where it basically came down to one revelation that the character had in the last 50 or so pages, that all of a sudden she has this revelation and she knows the answer. That's not a good mystery. You have to set clues, and you have to allow the mystery to breathe and unravel in a way that the reader can start forming their own kind of thoughts and theories and opinions as the characters discover new information. Also, as a lot of the other reviews on Goodreads have said, none of these characters in this book are likable. Not even Georgia, not even Stephanie. None of these characters are likable at all. And normally, in a mystery, I'm like, okay, I can live with unlikable characters. Because normally everybody's got secrets they're trying to hide, everybody has their own agenda, etc., etc. But not for me. I need at least one character to be rooting for. And the more we got to know Georgia, the less I wanted to root for her. And the less I believed her frantic search for her daughter. It became is she trying to look for her daughter because she really loves her daughter, or she feels that she's messed up in some way and is trying to fix some sort of mistake that she believes that she made. Overall, I would say if you were okay with dark, gritty thrillers that don't really have a good twist ending, it would be for you. Or if you're one of those people who likes thrillers where a family member is going to investigate a secret and discover or investigate some sort of occurrence in the family, and they discover some dark secrets and there's an answer, also for you. If you're like me and you want a well-planned and thought-out mystery, this is not for you. Okay, moving into the in-progress books. So the first book on the docket is The Silvered Serpents by Roshani Chusky. This is the second book in the Gilded Wolves. I'm not sure if the Gilded Wolves is a duology or a trilogy. If it's a duology, we need to have a discussion because this book is shorter than the first one. And there's a lot of loose threads to tie up in 400-ish pages. So far, I'm about almost 10%, over 10% of the way in. I'm really interested to see where this is going. I hope I will continue to enjoy it. The characters are in a very different place than they were in the last book. And so it's a very much like Ocean's 12. We'll see how this goes in comparison to Gilded Wolves, which was my Ocean's 11. I really enjoyed Gilded Wolves. But we will see how our characters develop and grow. We will see where the plot goes. And I will let you know when I'm done with it. Alright. The next book I'm working on is called Malice by Heather Walter. This is an e-arc I got from NetGalley. I'm about 8% of the way in. And this book will be available for people to buy and read on the 13th of April, 2021. Malice is a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. From the main character, whose name is Alice. She is a dark grace. And so far all I've gotten into it is the setup of who Alice is, how the society functions, and an introduction to some of the graces that she works with. Essentially, we are in a world where humans had a big war with the Fae. And there was a treaty done so that the Fae's half-human or partially human children would serve the humans in their wants and needs for spells, charms, incantations, etc. And so these human fae children, specifically the girls who have magical gifts, are trained how to use their gifts, and their gifts are primarily used through their blood, and they mix it into potions to achieve whatever they need to achieve. And there are the dark fae, or the dark graces, who are very similar to Maleficent. They have a different color blood than everybody else. They're typically darker. They're looked down upon, even though they make the most income for the society, because the government takes a cut of all the graces' payments. And then you have the light graces, who are very much the regular fairies who specialize in certain areas of gifts, so wit, beauty, etc. And there is a discussion early on about their power is finite, and eventually the graces will run out of magic, and they will go through something very similar to humans, where as they lose their magic, their hair goes silver, and it takes more and more blood to complete their charms. And when their hair is completely silver, all of their magic is used up and they have to retire. And a lot of the retired graces end up becoming kind of house mothers in these houses of magic. We've got that introduction, and then there's an invitation to Princess Aurora's birthday, and so the graces are talking about that. I believe what the description said was that we follow kind of the basic plot of Sleeping Beauty, where the graces show up at the birthday. Malice, or Alice, who's called Malice by the graces, shows up uninvited and gives the princess a gift of her own, which is the curse. And it sounds from the description like there might be an FF love pairing, in that Malice and Princess Aurora might be in love with each other. I will let you know what actually happens as I continue to read the book. But so far, I am really enjoying it. Next is Watchmen. This is by Alan Moore. It's my personal paperback, and I have made 25% progress since the last update. So, as you can see, I'm more than halfway done. And actually, the book itself only goes to here, so not that much left. Like four more issues or something like that. I am really enjoying this. It is kind of... I've been using this as like my bathroom break read, which is why it's going so slowly. But I really do enjoy it, and I enjoy where the story is going, and I enjoy the character development that's going on, so I will be super happy to get this finished so I can read the whole story and be done. Because this has been on the reading list for a while, and it should not have taken me this long, but it has. Alright. So next, Son of a Lich by J. Zachary Pike, which is Dark Prophet Saga Book 2. I have this as a personal audiobook. I'm 86% of the way into it. So if that is anything to tell you about how much I enjoy these audiobooks, I'm almost done with this audiobook, and I started it mid-month. So Son of a Lich starts pretty much where Orconomics left off. There are a lot of really entertaining things that happen in it, but I don't really want to spoil the plot if I can get away with not spoiling the plot. Needless to say, I really, really enjoy it. The Dungeons and Dragons elements continue forward and are really interesting. The elements of our actual society that have been woven into the book, really interesting and really thought-provoking. And we get a secondary side plot with Mr. Poldo, who's featured in the first book, where he has struck out on his own to form his own kind of brokerage, and ends up hiring a bunch of shadowkin, which are like orcs, goblins, kobolds, that kind of stuff. And I really enjoyed this one. Like I said, I'm almost done with it. And I will tell you all more about it in November when it's done. Alright, next is Columbus Day by Craig Allenson. I made 3% progress since last month. This one got pushed to the side because I did have to get through The Haunting of Beatrix Green and The Long Dark Road. It will probably also continue to get pushed to the side because I do have Malice and one other arc I need to get through in the next 30 days. But I am really enjoying this. I find that this is book 1 in the Expeditionary Force series. We are following Joe Bishop as he's from Maine. Earth is attacked by hamster creatures called the Ruhar, and they are saved by these creatures called the Kristang. Yes. And so the Earth binds together with the Kristang, or forms an alliance with the Tristang against the Ruhar, and send a force made up of various military peoples into space to help fight the war that the Kristangs are fighting for their alien overlords. Basically, there's 2 factions that are warring over the universe, which I talked a little bit more in last month's video, and when I actually finish the book, I will refresh for everyone again. But so in the last 3% that I finished, I've basically gotten him out of basic training and onto actual kind of military peacekeeping type duties, and I don't want to spoil anything more than that. So hopefully I will also have progress on this next month, but that will depend on my other books that I'm reading. Also, some exciting news. I did actually make progress on Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez this month. I made 14% progress on my library ebook. It was one where I had some time and I was like, I need to make progress on this book. I will make progress on this book today. And I sat down and did it. It's very similar to 100 Years of Solitude, but the characters are doing a lot more traveling and there's a lot more of the world involved. I can't really say how I feel about it right now. I'm going to have to wait till I finish the book to figure out how I actually feel about it. I think on the Gabriel Garcia Marquez books that I've read, to me, I like it more than 100 Years of Solitude, but I don't like it as much as I liked the first book that I read, which is The Death of... I will put the title. I own a copy. I read it in high school and really, really enjoyed it, which is why I'm reading the rest of them. Okay, so then comes my sadness, my shame. The 2 books that I made no progress on this month, which are Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. It's a first contact story that was written in the 60s. It's a library ebook, no progress. And then Lord Fowl's Bane, which is a fantasy book by Stephen R. Donaldson. Personal ebook, no progress. So on deck for this month, I have The Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, which is an e-arc from NetGalley. That one has to be done in the month of November. My arc is taken away from me in 30 days, so it's got to be done by then. It does release for purchase by the general public on the 19th of January, 2021. I'm not adding anything else to this list right now because, one, I will show you a picture of what my TBR shelf, physical TBR shelf, looks like right now. It's a little ridiculous. I need to clear it off a little. Also, I have a couple of books coming out in November. There's the sequel to the Guinevere Deception, and then there's the next Stormlight Archives book is coming out, which I pre-ordered with Audible. So those books will also take priority when they come out, but I don't want to put them on deck right now because I don't know where my reading will go at this point. I do know that when Stormlight Archives comes out, it will take over my audiobook listening because those are 48-hour audiobooks. So it will be a while and it will be on this list for a while, but I'll get it done and it'll get priority over some other things. So with that, as a summary kind of stats for this month, I completed 4 books. I have 8 books in progress, 1 book on deck, and the exciting part of the month, the total progress I made when I add up all the progress I made on my in-progress books equals 152% of a book. So I read about another book and a half worth of reading with all the progress I made on everything else. Overall, not a terrible month. Could have been better. Hopefully, November will be a little better for reading. That video is gonna go up probably right after Thanksgiving. But we will see. Everything might get delayed. I've got some family issues going on that'll take me away from YouTube for a while. But I will be back, and I will be providing updates as I can. With that, please do remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below if you agree or disagree with any of my takes on any of the books I talked about today. If you have any thoughts about what I should be reading, also throw them in the comments down below. And with that, I will talk to you all in another video.